Hello, this is Yaro and welcome to the Entrepreneur's Journey podcast. Today's guest is Lauren Shuttleworth. Hello, this is Yaro and welcome to an Entrepreneur's Journey interview. My special guest today has a business in, I don't know whether to call it an industry or maybe it's more like a type of entrepreneurship that I've never actually featured before on the Entrepreneur's Journey podcast, which makes me a little bit extra excited to share this with the Entrepreneur's Journey audience, because I know there's a lot of you out there who are trying to marry the doing good for society along with the entrepreneurial drive to make profits. And I think today's guest can help open some doors to some potential on how you can do that. So Lauren Shuttleworth, thank you for joining me.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So Lauren and I met late 2014, and she explained to me the kind of business she has and also what led up to it. So I'd love to go over that whole story with you, Lauren, and even before this whole thing you're doing now happened, go back in time as we do with my podcast. But just as a summary, can you just explain what you do right now? What is your business right now?
Yeah, sure. So I guess to define the industry you were talking about earlier, I guess the sector is social enterprise, so the social enterprise sector. And so my business is Words with Heart, and it's an eco-friendly stationery social enterprise that funds women's and girls' education projects. So I guess to define social enterprise a bit more, it's kind of like the perfect marrying of a business and a charity. So, it has a social purpose at heart, basically.
Now, you're still running a business in the sense that you're making money. This is how you make your living, right?
Yes. So it's for profit. It's for profit business. Not all social enterprises are, 100% for profit. There's many different variations, but yes, it's really just operates like any other business, except for the way that, I guess, for us, as I said, so we sell stationery products. It's made, with eco-friendly production methods. So I guess that has a social impact in itself. And then for every product we sell, it funds a certain amount of education days for women and girls, and we deliver that impact through charity partners, who invest then in education in the developing world.
Right. So instead of saying, I want to start a stationery company and sell my stationery online, you said, I want to start a stationery company, but I also want to source the materials for the stationery in environmentally friendly ways, and you want to support education in parts of the developing world for girls as well as part of the business. Not just you donating money, is it? This is more inbuilt into the actual, like the culture and the structure of your company. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. And I guess it kind of starts in a different way. So for me, and I think for a lot of social entrepreneurs, it starts from the cause, the problem. So for me, it was, women's and girls' education and how important that was and how much change that can create, in the world, and thinking about, okay, that's the problem. And, I come from a business background, and I can see that business is the way, especially social enterprise, to change problems and to have an impact. And so I sort of looked for, okay, where's a gap? What's a good product that, or a good market that I can create a social enterprise that then feeds that change. So it was kind of, a different approach rather than saying, I want to start a stationery company. It was, I want to address this issue, and what's, the best, smartest, most effective way I can do that through business.
Okay. So it's interesting. Yes, the cause and effect, it could start with a desire to change something, or it could start with the desire to start a company. That also changed something. It could come from anywhere. In your background, though, since I love to go back in time, have you been an entrepreneur your entire adult life? And did you study it ever in your schooling?
Oh, I guess I haven't. At university, I studied international business. So not really entrepreneurship, I suppose. But I guess to tell the story. So after university, I went overseas, went traveling, as many people do. And coming back to Australia, I started getting interested in the online space, and saw a gap in sort of the jewelry sort of retail space online, especially when it came to wholesale. So, yeah.
When was this? Can I know what? 2000
yeah, so this was 2000 and maybe end of 2008. 2008 it would have started, but I came back to Australia.
Okay, so the internet was well and truly a place to run a business by then. We're not talking the early days. Yeah,
exactly. But I think being overseas, I saw, especially living in the UK, how much further along they were in terms of the e-commerce space. And coming back to Australia, saw as well we were really behind. And so I saw a lot of opportunity there to create something. I guess the real catalyst for me as an entrepreneur was as I started to build dabble a little bit in things like eBay and the online space. I don't know if you might remember when group buying sites kind of became big in Australia. So there's OzSale and Brands Exclusive. There's a couple of, who else is it? Buy Invite.
Scoopon, was that here?
Yeah, so Scoopon. So there was kind of two types of group buying sites. There were the ones that sold discounts, like Scoopon, but then there were, as in for services, and then the others that sold products. So OzSale, which is still around and thriving today, is basically a membership site where people sign up and they have retailers that sell their products on their site as sales. So they'll have like a 50% off sale for a week or 10 days. And so all of the members have special access to that sale, and then they just roll it around. So every week they'll have maybe 10 new retailers that will sell on their site. So it became really, really big a couple of years ago, but now it's kind of really dwindled away.
I think Groupon was the big one in the States, wasn't it?
Yes. So we did have in Australia, but I think they kind of did more sort of service-based discounts, a little bit different model. But okay. Yeah, so anyway, as that started to take off, I sort of saw an opportunity because they really wanted to connect in with some of the bigger retailers, but the bigger retailers weren't really connecting with the online space yet. They didn't really have much of an e-commerce presence. So I sort of thought, well, I can basically provide wholesale jewelry for these guys and do these short sales where they were attracting huge markets of people, of customers, and sort of sell, even at a discount, still make quite a decent profit, and for a week make, a good chunk of money, and then, do another one the next month or run them across, actually ended up running them across the 3 different group buying sites, every 2 weeks. So
where did you get your jewelry? You had anything to do with jewelry before this?
No, I was just a typical 20-something girl, I guess, who was into fashion. But I just sourced it. So I just did a lot of research and ended up buying a lot of it from South Korea, actually, was where both of my main suppliers were. So just really kind of stumbled across this gap in the market.
It does seem kind of random because you had no retail experience before, no online experience before, besides maybe a little bit of eBay, and you weren't in the jewelry industry at all, but you just saw this opportunity and then went looking for a way to get product. Is that kind of how it happened? Pretty much, yeah. I was just really dabbling, and then I was always looking at different things that were happening online, and I was asked to be a member, invited to be a member on one of these sites, and was like, this is great, but I don't really have that much of a range, and sort of as well when I was looking at the margins that I was making through my sales online, and realized, well, this would still work. I could still make, like between, I think I ended up making per sale maybe anywhere between $3,000 and $10,000 in a sale. As it got bigger, it was more towards the bigger amount. So it was just a funny gap that I kind of stumbled across. And I guess a lot of entrepreneurs do that. They sort of somehow in everyday life see something that's missing and go, okay, well, I can fill that. I can do something there. So that's how it happened. And just to clarify how that all worked, because I can imagine you going online, filling out an order form in Korea, and them shipping the jewelry to your garage, then the group buying site running a special, you getting whatever it is, 5,000 or maybe 500 orders, and then shipping them all off to the post office. Is that kind of how it worked?
Yeah, so how it worked would be there would be these forms that you'd pre-fill out saying we've got this many units, and you had to provide a lot of stock, because they sold a lot, so it was quite big numbers. So we sort of say, look, I've got XYZ of all these different styles, and we supplied the photographs. So took all the stylized photographs for the different items, and then just sent that through to them. So really, it was all very up until post-sale. It was just all online, our transaction. I sent through samples to them as well, because as it evolved, they like to take their own photos. So they would take photos of the samples. And then post the sale would go online. They would sell whatever they sold, and then they would send me an order form, and I would just send everything to them in bulk, and they would send it off to their customers. So,
gosh, that sounds almost too easy.
Yeah, it was. I said it was quite good for the short time it lasted. I think it was maybe 2011. It started to really die off. But yeah, it was a lovely little space. And then from there, once it started to get quite popular, some of the bigger retailers all jumped on board. They realized the value of the online space, and that they needed to be on there, and that customers were engaging with these, big membership sites. And so from there, it was a lot harder to compete, really. But yeah, it was great.
Now, did you make your living during that time from this business, or were you always sort of maintaining a job at the same time?
I was always maintaining a job. I was working part-time because, as well, it really, in terms of output, it wasn't really a lot of time that I had to put into it. Apart from when I had to pack orders to send to them, that would be, a block of, intensive time. But no, I was always a little bit nervous of letting go of the part-time job. I think, especially because I was quite young, I was sort of nervous of giving up that career, and as well not knowing how long that would last. So,
what was your career?
So I worked in HR, in human resources, and as a consultant. So I did, recruitment and consulting for different businesses around Australia.
Okay, so
it's completely different.
Yeah, I'm trying to see the obvious connections that lead up to running a social enterprise, selling stationery, which so far, is a tiny bit with the jewelry business. I can say that would have given you some e-commerce skills to begin with, but it's certainly not a path you could easily trace, going from the start to the end. It doesn't all make sense, I guess, in connecting the dots. So, but I'd love to know how this did lead to Words with Heart. So you're working part-time in HR. You made some good money selling jewelry through group buying sites in a window of opportunity when it was new and the big retailers weren't that interested in it yet. Then that started to die off, that money from that starting to go away. Now, what did you go back to your job full time, or what happened next?
Yeah, so I guess really the catalyst was, as I said, it was a few years of things that were going really great with the online business, and I was starting to think about what would I do next, like how would I evolve once this trend ended. And I guess that brought up a few things at the time about what did I want to do. As I said, I kind of stumbled into it, so I wasn't sure if that was exactly where my passion did lie. And then I guess, as life does, the decision was kind of made for me, in the sense that I had a bit of a sad tragedy happen. My mum passed away very suddenly in the end of 2011, and I think, as many people, as it happens in many people's lives, when something like that happens, a tragedy or a challenge in life, it sort of makes you think and really sit back and assess, what am I doing in my life, and what matters to me, and that definitely happened for me. It really made me sort of question, especially thinking about the business and what did I want to do, as well as having such an emotional effect on me. I just needed to take some time out, so I stepped back from the business for a little while, and as part of that, I decided I was going to go on a volunteer trip for 3 months overseas. And it was something I'd always wanted to do, but had always put off because I was busy with, part-time work and the business, and had just always thought I'd get around to it. But yeah, with mum passing away, it made me think life is short and I need to do this. I need to take the time for me. So I spent part of the time in Thailand at an animal conservation charity, I guess, or organisation, and did some volunteer work there, mainly with elephants, really. Yeah, it was pretty great. And yeah, I just had it was really nice. It was sort of in the jungle, and it was certainly very kind of, I guess, a bit taking time out, a little bit spiritual, I guess. But
did you get a photo with a tiger?
No. Yeah, okay. No.
Because those photos are everywhere online. Everyone has a photo with a tiger for some reason.
No, and I think there's a whole. I could jump into a whole lot of welfare issues, animal welfare issues with that. But
sure you could.
Yeah, but I won't.
Okay.
But no. So this was really this place was all about conservation, animal welfare, and working with elephants actually that had been rescued from the tourism and logging trade. So it was really nice to take a step back, and I wanted to do that because my mum had always loved elephants and had always talked about doing something like that. So in a way, it was kind of a bit of a honouring her in a way. So from there, I went to Kenya, and I spent the next second half of that time there volunteering at a school. And it was there when I really developed my passion for women's and girls' education, because I saw just how lacking the girls in particular were with funding. A lot of them didn't know if they were going to be able to do the next term of school because, their parents or their orphanage couldn't afford it. So they were relying on all those sort of bit of a up in the air situation. Am I going to be able to continue with school, which, education has such a big impact on the rest of a girl's life, not just in terms of opportunities, but in terms of health and whether or not she'll get married younger and a whole scope of things. So it just made me realize that this is an area where it's lacking in sustainable funding. It's something that I'm passionate about. And there was one girl in particular that I'll always remember. Her name was Esther, and she was this really smart little cookie, really bright. She wanted to be a doctor, and she was in a situation where she loved school but didn't know whether she was going to be able to go for the next term. Her orphanage had said, we're not going to be able to pay for you. So I had paid the next year of school fees, but it just made me think, well, what about the next year? What about all of the other girls in similar situations? So coming back from that trip back to Australia, that's when I thought, I don't want to leave what I learned there. This is what I'm passionate about. I want to see what I can do in this space and use all of my business knowledge and entrepreneur skills to work at creating something meaningful here. So that's when I really started doing a bit of research into charities in Australia, and I stumbled across the term, the idea of social enterprise, which is very new really in Australia. It's much more evolved in the US and the UK, but it's really just starting to get a stronghold here. So I applied to the School of Social Entrepreneurs, which I don't know if many of your listeners would have heard of, but it's they're pretty much they're in Canada, they're in the UK, they're in quite a few places around the world, but they're all about taking budding social entrepreneurs and teaching them the whole scope of things about social enterprise. And
what's it called?
The
School of
Social Entrepreneurs.
So we could Google that if you want to find out more.
Yeah, so yeah, you can Google that.
Okay. I'll Google. You keep talking.
I think it's ssc.org.au if anyone wanted to look that up. But yeah, so I did a 9-month course with them, and from there, that was when while I was there, that I had the idea for Words with Heart. So I was at the airport actually, and on my way somewhere to Sydney, I think, and I walked into a stationery store to grab a notebook to take notes on the plane. And the first book that I saw was one that said, "Boys, Heels, Blogs, let's get back to the basics." And I think being like the feminist in me was like, what? That's not really a great message to be sending to schoolgirls. So I started to think about what was happening in the stationery space.
I just have to clarify, it's boys,
Boys,
heels, as in
heels,
high heel shoes.
high heels, yeah.
And blogs. Okay.
Not that there's anything wrong with blogs, obviously.
I know, I'm slightly insulted there, but okay.
But I mean, it was a campus notebook, so it was sort of, pushing itself as this, notebook for university studies. So for me, I just thought, it's just such a bad message. And I think it was just really representative of many other types of marketing and that kind of thing that's directed at women and girls. And it really just was the trigger that made me think about, well, what about stationery? What's happening in the stationery space in social enterprise? And I started to do a bit of research, and it's such a big market. There's, it's huge in Australia, and I mean, obviously internationally too, but it fits so well with education, as in terms of stationery products funding education for women and girls. So that was where it all started, and I sort of evolved our business model, and I went from there. So that was only last year. So we launched in September last year. So we've only been going for 6 months, but it's been pretty busy.
Yes, it has. I've heard many of Lauren's stories, so which I'd love to talk about. But let's tell me, and I'm interested in this too. So you have your idea now. You know what you want to do. You want to do stationery. You want to do education for girls. You want to have a better message for young girls. And I'm assuming at some point you're thinking environmental production as well. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't have a clue. I deal in digital things, so everything's just on a computer. Now you're talking about a physical product. You're talking about sourcing environmental product. You're talking about somehow finding a way to get some of the money to girls in education. It seems overwhelming to me. So can you take us through that
Yeah, actually, when
process?
you put it like that, it is pretty overwhelming.
How did
I do that?
How did you do it, Lauren?
And I think that's the thing. You have to break it down into small bits, because it is a lot. There's a lot that connects and keeps us running. So, we have our charity partners who are pretty big. So Care Australia is one, and One Girl, which maybe people haven't heard of as...
Wait, before you, I can hear you going, oh, we got this and this now. But how did you just happen?
How?
So
okay.
Lauren decides this idea. Did she make a phone call?
Research. It's really started as research, going, I've got this idea. So how do I create stationery, and kind of researching different bits and pieces online, and looking at printers, and then going, okay, so I need to get in contact with a printer. So how do people produce stationery? What makes stationery eco-friendly? What makes it less eco-friendly? So it was really just a lot of research and a lot of talking to people. And, I spoke to a lot of social entrepreneurs asking for their advice on, how they got started in whatever area it might be, especially for those that had physical products. So yeah, it was a lot of asking and a lot of researching, and then just piecing the little bits together. So that's a simple answer.
Let me ask you this: how did you get designs done, and that part?
Sure. So that again was a lot of asking for help. So I have a good friend of mine that's a graphic designer. So I said, look, this is what I'm thinking of doing. Do you want to come on board? And she loved the idea. And so we just started working on designs together. And again, a lot of research in terms of seeing what was selling, what my target market was buying. So I think as well, I guess, again, being a woman, I was kind of creating something that I would want to buy, which is kind of easier than having to create something for someone that, you don't really know how they think or what they want. So, we started working on designs, and then had a group of girlfriends that I sort of tested them with and asked them which ones did they like, what should we change. So did some market research. Yeah, that's how the designs happened.
I'm looking at one right now, and it's a card or a booklet that says, I am a girl, I am smart, I am brave, I can do anything.
Yes.
Over some flowers. Is that something you came up with? Like those words and the design and everything?
Yeah. So the words we came up with, because I guess there's a whole grey area around, you can't really sell people's quotes on physical products unless they're, over a certain time period. So yeah, there's a lot of grey area there. So yes, all of the all of the words, which I guess fits into our Words with Heart, which is the name of the business. We wrote, or they're what are called public domain, so they're not really attributed to anyone. Okay. But yeah, no, those ones we wrote.
So wordswithheart.com if the listeners want to see what I've just been talking about. Okay, so you've come up with these designs, which I have to say must have been fun on some level too. It gets to tap into your creativity with your graphic designer. And then see it come to life. So that's cool. So you get these designs, you've called up a printer, and then you take the design to a printer, and then they say, yes, we can produce these for this amount of money, and it'll cost this much on environmentally sourced stock. Is that right?
Yes, that's pretty much how it goes.
So you've got product then.
Yes, then you've got product. So I guess the tricky thing with that, and this is what we did, I'll tell the story about our crowdfunding, is you've got to buy stationery in bulk. Basically, it's like any product you create or manufacture. The more that you make, the cheaper it is per unit, and that was what it was all about. It was creating stationery that was no more expensive, than a similar product, a similar boutique stationery product. But you're buying something that is eco-friendly and it also funds education. So having it be that similar price is really important, I think, for my model of social enterprise, because you want people to go choice A, choice B. Well, they're both good quality, they're both great designs, but this one has, this social impact. Of course, you're going to choose that one.
I think that's a marketing point worth reiterating. I really like the fact that everything's the same, as you just said, but it's a point of differentiation from a marketing point that you can sell more product because you're helping people, and that's a good thing. So it's not like you're writing better copy. It's just, hey, we help others as well. So I think that's fantastic. I do want to hear about this crowdfunding thing, but I just want to clarify one thing, and this probably ties in with the crowdfunding. When you said you have to order X amount of stationery, you don't have to do that until you have buyers. Do you have to do that in advance?
Well, I mean, I guess it depends how you do it. So, as I said, with the crowdfunding, we sourced buyers, we pre-sold our stationery. So we sourced buyers before we actually had to physically buy the product.
Okay.
But you wouldn't have to do that if you were prepared and you willing to take that. Not that it's a risk, but when you don't know if something's going to sell, it's a bit of a jump to go, okay, I'm just going to spend, tens of thousands of dollars on buying, thousands of notebooks.
You do print on demand, right?
Sorry?
You would do print on demand. Makes more sense because then you only print when you have a buyer, right?
Yeah, but that's more expensive.
Okay.
To just print small quantities. Then. That's it. Yeah. So that's the risk, I suppose, with physical product is that to be able to sell it at that reasonable cost and have good profit margins, you have to buy it in bulk or create it in bulk. Mm-hmm. But then you've got to have a market there so that you're going to sell it, especially with a product like stationery where it's so tied in with, it's like a fashion type product which has an expiry date which might be quicker than something like toilet paper, which isn't really going to change that much with the seasons. So yeah, it's a fine line and finding that balance, which is why we decided to go down the crowdfunding.
Okay, so just to put this into the timeline, you've gone as far as getting designs done, and I'm assuming printing a few test versions to show your friends for research and so on. So now you're thinking, okay, I can make product. Now I need to get customers. Is that what you're thinking? Is that what triggered crowdfunding, or was there another reason behind it? Yeah,
well, I already knew that a few other successful social enterprises had launched with crowdfunding that had a similar model to mine.
Like which one?
To Words with Heart. So Who Gives a Crap, which I don't know if anyone has heard of. They're a toilet paper company, and they sell eco-friendly toilet paper, which funds sanitation projects in the developing world. So they launched via a crowdfunding campaign, and I can't think of how much they raised. I think it was over 50,000. But that was with that idea as well that, they needed to buy a lot of toilet paper to be able to sell it at a price where, they could be competitive in the market. And to do that, it was like, okay, we need to buy it in bulk. Let's find a market for it first before we take that risk and just have a warehouse full of toilet paper sitting there. And there are a couple of others that have launched in the same way. So another one is Suno. So they're actually a women's hygiene product company. They sell sanitary pads, and they're made with bamboo and sort of a bamboo fiber, and they fund health projects in the developing world for women. So
what's that one called? Suno?
Suno, TSUNO.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and again, she had raised in excess of $40,000, I think, to kind of kick off to buy a huge. She ended up getting a whole shipment of pads sent over from somewhere overseas, and again had to sort of have a market for them to sell them in Australia. So that's why crowdfunding is such a great model for businesses, I suppose, like mine, where you need to buy in bulk, especially if you have a social purpose, because people connect with the story. They really connect with the change that you're trying to create. So I think that really helps too. For us, we got a lot of press and, a ready-made consumer base really in 30 days. So it was really good.
Okay, well, take us through the crowd campaign. How does that work? And which platform did you use?
So we used Start Some Good, which is just for social purpose projects, as opposed to Kickstarter, which or a few others that are just all kinds of creative or tech type projects. So people that know Start Some Good know it for that reason. And
Start Some Good?
Startsomegood.com.
Okay.
So it was actually as part of a grant or initiative or a corporate initiative with ING Direct that we applied for and won. And as part of that, it was doing this crowdfunding campaign. So they provided, an extra financial kick and, some other PR stuff. So it happened very fast from finding out that we were successful too, that we had to do this crowdfunding campaign, which I'd already planned for at some stage, but not so soon. Ended up being good, but it was, sometimes it's good to be pushed a little bit outside of your comfort zone. So we had to create a video as part of the crowdfunding campaign, a whole bunch of copy and all of the perks. So how it works with our crowdfunding was that if people pledged, they might pledge $20, they would pre-buy a journal, a girl's journal. And if they then pledged the next amount, maybe $40, they would buy 3 notebooks. So it kind of went up in tiers like that, and up to the point where we had, I think, a $5,000 perk where you could become a corporate sponsor and would work on a collaborative project. So yeah, it was a tier of perks, and it was a 30-day campaign. And yeah, once it launched, I was lucky to have there's a lot of work going into crowdfunding campaigns, a lot of work in building your network and having them share your campaign and support your campaign. And then the press that was really valuable to us, and something that took a lot of work in getting the campaign out there and getting press to support it and send the word out. So
you did a video too?
Yeah. So we did a campaign video, which, as I said, people learn in different ways. So some people liked reading the copy, some people liked watching the quick video. It was a good way it was really nice and easy to share, people to engage with. So yeah, and it was successful. So we reached our target, and we were able to then buy our thousands of notebooks, which sit in my garage.
What was your target?
So we had a minimum target of 15,000.
Okay.
We ended up getting kind of close to 20,000. So yeah, and as well, I think sometimes the thing that was more valuable than the money, I mean, the money was great. I could have invested that money myself in getting the stationery made. But I wanted to know the market was there. And I wanted, as well, the press was great. I wanted there to be that little bit of a buzz about what we were doing. And I think crowdfunding was the perfect model to do that.
I think it's also great how it forces you into action, because it creates a deadline for you to try and meet as well. So
yes, that's true.
Amazing how much you get done when you have this clock there saying, this is going to fail or succeed based on you doing something in the next 30 days, right?
Yeah. So. But also for supporters, for people, anyone that has, because there was that 30 days and it was this, come on, like, we're a team, help us get there. This is the change we're going to create. I think people engage with that. They see themselves as being part of what you're doing. It's just a really beautiful way to tell your story and to bring people along and to sort of build a community. And that's what has pushed us now and helped us grow rapidly in the past 6 months, is that what began as this community has grown, and people that are really dedicated to the brand now and buy all their stationery from us and share photos on social media. And I feel like a lot of responsibility to that, because they're so engaged in what we're doing and they're passionate about changing women's and girls' education. So yeah, there's a lot of, it's more than just a business when it's a social enterprise. There's a lot more you take on.
Yeah, it's all very synergistic, though. I really like the way it sort of, your story links with the product, links with the marketing. It just fits well. And obviously you feel great about what you're doing. Plus you're making money for yourself and helping other people. It's kind of ticking all the boxes for, what most entrepreneurs want out of a business. So tell us what happened after crowdfunding. So you get $20,000, you go buy a bunch of stationery, then you have to ship it off to all the supporters. So that would have been a new experience as well. And there was no company doing that for you this time, or is there a way to have?
No.
How does this
That was
work?
me doing that this time.
Gosh.
So yeah, it was a lot of work, but I have and I have now a great team of interns, which really helped me get a lot of work done. I wouldn't have been able to do it without them.
Tell me about that. How do you get these interns? Because you have an army of them. And
Yes, I have 7 interns. Not quite an army, but a few. So I guess that's the other advantage of a social enterprise, is that people are passionate about what you're doing, your cause, and so they want to engage with that and be part of it. And so I have 7 university interns, women at university, which is great too, because they're our target market. They're helping to create our product and our business, my business as it grows. So there's another social enterprise actually that has a connection with the local, with UQ here in Brisbane, University of Queensland. And so I advertised through them and had a lot of applications come through and picked the top ones that I thought would match what we needed in terms of skill set. And they work on all different things. So they work on our press, so they send out press releases, and market research is a big one. A lot of the time-consuming things that I don't necessarily have a lot of time for, or at least my time could be better spent in terms of the bigger picture stuff, strategy, scale, etc.
As well as, I'm guessing, blogging, social media,
yes, so they do all
newsletters.
Exactly. There's so many things. I mean, goodness. Yes. And getting back to emails, people emailing queries through, and just anything in a business, all of the administrative bits and pieces. So yeah, it's been an absolute blessing to have them on board. And as I said, because they're so passionate about it, they're very open with sharing ideas and sharing with their networks and connecting with people they know. So yeah, it's another great benefit, I suppose, in having a social enterprise, is that people will really just take on what you're doing as their own, as something that's their project too.
Are they working remotely, or do you have an office of some kind?
We have a co-working space that we meet at, every fortnight or sooner if we need to. But other than that, they work remotely. I mean, they're university students. They're busy with work and university and a social life. So, and I don't want to make it hard. No one has to be when they're giving their time as interns. So, yeah. So no, they work remotely mainly, and we catch up when we need to fortnightly to have sort of brainstorming sessions, and I speak with them once a week as well. Just we have activity maps that we work through, so it's pretty structured.
What do you do then, Lauren? What's your job?
I just sit back
on the couch, watch Netflix.
So for me, it's been, I guess, post campaign, it's been a lot of strategic work. So it was developing relationships with charity partners, and with charity partners that I knew would deliver a really great social impact. And that's something that's been hard for me to navigate because my background is in business. And so knowing what is good development is a bit harder for me to judge. So I've had to rely on, I guess, advice and being more careful, not careful, but planning and looking into it in more detail than what I would with business type things. So as I mentioned earlier, so our charity partners, our first two charity partners are Care Australia and One Girl. So Care Australia work, all over the world, but the project we support with them at the moment is in Cambodia. And then One Girl work in Sierra Leone in West Africa, supporting exclusively education there. So they're two.
How did those relationships come about? And I'm really curious too, what the logistics of this. Like, do you sell a booklet and then there's a slice of that money just handed directly to the partnership, or how interconnected is it? Yeah,
so I guess it was, how does it start? So I approached One Girl. I know the founders of One Girl both went through the School of Social Entrepreneurs several years ago. So I had approached them when I was just about to launch Words with Heart and sort of said, look, I'd actually really love to partner with you at some stage because I think the work that you do is great. And so then that evolved from there. And Care Australia was similar, although I got in touch with them near the end of the campaign. And so I think, again, because we had so much press, and we had, a lot of buyers in a community that all that came about from the campaign, that added a lot of weight to what we were doing and sort of made them, I guess, take notice and say, yeah, we want to be part of that. So if I'd approached them at the beginning, I don't think we might not have had that partnership, just because, they're such a big organization and they partner with so many other big partners like Virgin Australia and, why would they want to partner with us? So it was about creating that bit of a platform first. So how it works is they partner with us. We sell our products, and then after a fixed term, so for us it's every 6 months, we send through the funds, the collective funds from the previous 6 months worth of sales to them, which they then deliver that because we actually work on what they call a dollar handle. So we've worked out exactly how much a day of education costs for the different projects that we work with. And so they then deliver that and then report back to us with case studies and with detailed data, which we then can report through to our board, to our customers. So, yeah.
Okay.
Does that explain it?
It does. Thank you. It's all clear in my head now. There's so many components to this because you are dealing with, I guess, at least one main additional variable, the charity partners. And like you said, it does make you do decision making a little bit differently because you have to decide who you're going to work with, what marketing campaigns and promotions you will say yes to. Mm-hmm. In your case, you might actually have to say no to certain ones because it just kind of maybe clashes with something that the social aspect of your enterprise is. And I know you've had to deal with a few of those kind of issues in the recent months as well. So it's like, for me, I can go, I don't go straight. It's a business decision, but I don't have to consider those factors because I lack the social part of my business. So, I think with this, as a social enterprise, at least for me, I'm always looking at the business and thinking, okay, am I doing everything as ethically as I can? And that's something that I guess, I assume businesses do think about that. But, for us, it's about, because we are a stationery company and we sell eco-friendly stationery, I can't just go and buy just normal copy paper. Like, I have to buy recycled copy paper, or I can't just, just all the little business decisions. I'm always thinking about how can we have an impact? And I think that's maybe being a social entrepreneur as well. You care about so many other areas apart from this little slice of impact that you work on. So even though we're focused on the environment and women and girls' education, I care about lots of other social issues too. So I'm always thinking about, are we not addressing that, but are we considering that, or we're not clashing with that in terms of values
by doing, X project. So yeah, it's a different consideration. But I think and a lot of people already probably do that in their business. They have their own value system and they make decisions on that. It's probably just a bit harder when you have to kind of think about the possible scrutiny, I suppose, that can come potentially from the press or other areas if you make a wrong turn, or so it's a little bit more, there's more responsibility involved, I suppose.
Okay, well, I'd like to turn the microphone around, well, the tension light onto you now. So you're helping the environment, you're helping these schoolgirls. What about you as an entrepreneur? Let's go greedy now. How does this work both in how you pay yourself? Because I know there's been problems. In fact, you've shared some TED Talks with me about the contradictions regarding compensation for employees of charities, where there's often, that doesn't seem socially acceptable to pay a charity employee as well as a normal company employee, even though they should be paid as well because they're running a company. But there's all these social judgments placed on that. Does that happen with a social enterprise as well? Like, how do you decide how much you personally get to keep, how much you pay yourself, those sorts of things?
Yeah, I think that really depends on the social enterprise. I know some that operate purely as, 100% of their profits they do send through to their cause. But the great thing about social enterprise and why it's different from charity is that you operate as a business, because charities are subjected to a lot more scrutiny in terms of administration costs. And, people, when they're donating to a charity, they want that money to go to the cause. And so sometimes they'll get a little bit more, they get upset when they think, okay, I'm giving, $100 and I want that to go to the women and girls. That $100 has to pay, part of it has to pay someone's wages, part of it has to keep the lights on. I'm not so happy about that. And that's this kind of, the TED Talk we were talking about, it's this old kind of mentality that we've hung on to, where charities are subjected to this different kind of set of rules as to businesses. But really, if you think about a charity, they're doing such good in the world. Surely we should be encouraging them to in their business, to invest into invest foundations with the right people, so that then they can continue to do even more good and create bigger things. So that's where I guess social enterprise is changing things up, because we're able to work with the business rules where we can spend whatever we want on marketing. We can spend what we need to on the right people. And by doing that, we're making more profit. And by making more profit, we're creating more change, more social good. So I think that's where a lot of charities now are moving almost to social enterprises, or they're developing social enterprises that sit under the charities, because they can actually use those business rules, which, make perfect sense. Of course, if you're going to grow, you have to invest to do good and be more. So I guess that's how Words with Heart does work. So we're a company, for profit, 100% for profit. And, at the moment we're in startup phase. Obviously, a lot of what we're making is investing back in to what we're doing to grow and scale and to take on new opportunities. So I know I've spoken to you about a big opportunity that's come up for us recently that we're working on, which is with a really large stationery retailer in Australia. So, for us, that is a lot of investment that's going into that in terms of stock, in terms of marketing, in terms of design. But we know that by investing all of that money in there, we're going to be able to create so much more change, so much more fun, so much more education for women and girls. So, yeah, we're all about making the biggest profit that we can so that we can have the biggest impact that we can.
Okay, so as a startup, you're a founder, so you're not taking a salary likely yet anyway, as most startups wouldn't pay their founders a very large salary until the company is well and truly established. So you're playing by the same rules then. At some point, if you're turning over millions, then you can start drawing a salary, you have employees, you pay them full rates. And
absolutely.
Okay.
And it's like, I think we've talked about Tom's as being a really good example of a social enterprise that, is totally doing amazing things. So Tom's Shoes is a company in the US. I'm sure that's probably one that many of your listeners have heard of. They have a model which is called the 1-for-1 model. So every pair of shoes they sell, it funds a pair of shoes for a child in the developing world. And they have a few other businesses now with glasses and coffee and other things have a similar 1-for-1 model. But they actually just sold I think we're a venture capitalist firm, like maybe Bain in the US, for millions of dollars. They bought an equity from Tom's, and you know, because they're such a great business, you know, they're not, even though they have a social purpose, they're a really valuable, fantastic business company. And that's how I think social enterprise, I like that model of social enterprise, that, you know, you work with the rules of a company, you pay people what they're worth to, you know, to be able to grow the company and have more of a bigger impact, and you invest what you need to in marketing, in foundations of your business, you pay yourself what you're worth, and you know, you sell parts of the company if you think that's going to have create a big impact, or even if you just want to move on to something else and do another like enterprise. So I think we should have the same rules as a business, really. To me, it's a no-brainer in that sense.
What's the name of that TED Talk so I can put it with the links for the show notes for this? Do you remember?
Yeah, you're putting me on the edge now.
You think about it. I'm just going to say I really like the Tom's model because it's very clear. You sell a shoe, you sell some shoes, you give some shoes to someone else, but there's enough margin there to fund the company as well. So you've got very straight numbers and straight contributions back. Do you remember the name?
No, sorry. I can't remember, but I'll give it to you, and I'm sure you can include it.
Okay. Well, what I'm going to do is ask you a question, and then I'll Google and see if I can find it while you're talking. The one question, just to sort of wrap us up, we've got about 10 minutes, a little bit less than 10 minutes before we hit the hour mark, Lauren. Okay. So doing well. For the listeners who are going, you know what, I really want to do a social enterprise now. I'm excited. Lauren's doing great things. I have possibly some great ideas, or even though I maybe don't have great ideas, I just love this social enterprise world and I want to get involved. So if someone was a budding new potential social entrepreneur, what would you have them do? Go through a course, or like what's step one?
Yeah, sure. I've got the TED Talk here for you.
You beat me.
So it's called The Way We Think About Charity is Dead Wrong, by Dan Pallotta. So, yeah, definitely watch that one. It's a really interesting talk. But in terms of advice for budding social entrepreneurs, I would say be really sure about your cause, because that's something that's going to drive you when things get challenging. So if it's something that, you know, you have to be really passionate about it, because if it's something that, you know, you kind of picking as just a cause that you think fits in well with your business model, it might not push you. And I think sometimes consumers can see through that as well if you're not truly passionate about that particular issue. So make sure it's something that you really love and that you can see yourself, you know, working, you know, for, you know, however many years. Secondly, I would say go and network with other social entrepreneurs. I think the social enterprise community is very welcoming, and I was really surprised by that, I think, compared to my experiences in maybe the entrepreneur space, because I think sometimes, nothing against normal entrepreneurs because I've been one, but sometimes, you know, of course, it's your business, you're a bit more, I guess sometimes cards can be a bit closer to your chest in terms of wanting to protect that. But social entrepreneurs, for some reason, the community is much more like, oh, you're doing that? Great. Let me put you in touch with this person. Let me send you all of my templates on marketing, you know. So people, I find, are a lot more open and really want to help you on your way. So there are lots of different meetups. I know, I'm sure all over the world, about social enterprise and social entrepreneurs. So do that, or you can enroll in, like I did, something like the School of Social Entrepreneurs. There are lots of different programs like that popping up for social enterprise now as it becomes bigger and bigger. So seek those out. And then I would say, just like any other type of entrepreneur, I guess, just start. I think that sometimes is the key, is to just, even if it seems like such a big chunk. Like I said, when you sort of laid it all out with Words with Heart, it really is a lot to navigate with charity partners and, how do I produce this or whatever it might be. But just chip away at it and approach the little bits, and it's amazing how quickly they come together. But if you put it off and you get overwhelmed by how big it is, or you start to think, it's such a big issue, how am I going to even begin to change that? Don't even entertain those thoughts, because it's just the process of going through the little bits, and it's amazing how quickly things add up. Like even now, sometimes I stop and go, wow, 6 months ago, I had nothing. Words with Heart was just an idea, and now we're talking to these big retailers, and so it's amazing how quickly things can change if you just push yourself to start. So those would be the three things, I think.
Fantastic, Lauren. So anyone listening in, if you want to buy stationery for starters,
yes.
head to wordswithheart.com, and you can also check out everything Lauren's doing there. And I know at some point you're going to have another website for what you're talking about now, basically. But Words with Heart for stationery. Sign up to her email newsletter. If you got some kids, send them to school. Great stationery there. Anything else you want to throw in, Lauren, before I wrap up the call?
No, I think you've just done a really great plug for me. So that's great.
Well, is there anything I forgot there? Just to clarify, definitely. What do you sell? What does stationery mean?
So at the moment we have notebooks and a girl's journal. We have a travel journal. We have pens as well. So it's sort of still our launch collection. We're about to release our new collection in the next month or so, which will have wider products. So we have sort of your basic needs in terms of stationery there, but it's always growing. So definitely, as I said, if you sign up to our email newsletter, it's the best way to keep in touch in terms of new products that are coming out and everything else, and as well to keep in touch with our impact for women's and girls' education. I think that's kind of the exciting thing, to follow along and see, just by making a purchase, what impact you then have for someone else and their dreams on the other side of the world. And it's a really nice way to be connected into these little purchases that you buy.
Awesome. All right, Lauren, thank you for joining me on the call. Good luck with the growth. I will be obviously staying in touch and hearing all the latest news from Words with Heart and what's going on there. And thank you for also, I guess, in showing me a window into this world of social enterprise, because I've always divided charity and entrepreneurship quite strictly, I guess. I haven't seen the overlap the way social enterprise is doing it. And I really like the ability to dip your toes into greedy capitalism, which also benefits social causes, kind of wrapping two different ways of doing things. And that's fantastic. So,
I'm glad. And I really hope that, I said for some of your listeners, that maybe it opens up that wider way. I know when I was first starting out, even back in the entrepreneur days, it was, I cared about charity, I cared about these causes, but I also wanted a career, I also wanted to make money, and didn't think that they could fit together. But, they absolutely can. And I think that's the way it's going to move even more and more in the future. So
agreed. And I think there's lots of ways us online entrepreneurs can tap into this idea as well. So if you're running an online business right now, you might have a stop and think how you can tie what you're doing into some sort of cause, not just because it helps people, not just because you might feel better about it, but because it also can help your business to grow. So it's benefits all around.
Yeah, I think it would be exciting to see how it can work in the online space as well. So
definitely. All right, Lauren, thank you. And I should mention, if people want to get in touch with you, is there anything you feel comfortable giving out? I don't know, if social media or...
Yeah, so they can actually contact me directly. So my email address is lauren@wordswithheart.com, but you can find all of our social media links as well. And you feel free to just contact me if you have any questions about social enterprise. I'm always happy to help.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you.
And thank you to all the listeners. This has been the Entrepreneur's Journey podcast. If you want to subscribe, you can do so on iTunes, or you can come to my blog at entrepreneurs-journey.com, or just Google my name, Yaro, and you'll find all the previous podcast episodes and everything else about me there. Thanks again for listening. Thanks, Lauren, and talk to you all very soon. Bye-bye.